Welcome to the Spiritualpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Christian, aka Love Pixel. And in each episode, we sit down with spiritual entrepreneurs sharing their knowledge, wisdom, and tools on their path to authentic success. Let's dive in. What is up, beautiful people? This is Christian from the Successful Spiritualpreneur Podcast. And today I'm super excited to have Aileda on the show. She is a business alchemist, a conscious leadership development expert, blending cutting-edge strategy with intuitive insights to guide leaders through transformative growth. And with over a decade of experience, she specializes in integrating technology and human-centric leadership, empowering executives to navigate complexity with clarity and purpose. Her consultancy fosters innovation, ethical leadership, and sustainable success, redefining how businesses operate in the digital era. Conscious leadership development is revolutionizing executive performance, shifting how leaders engage with the world. This training cultivates resilience, strategic adaptability, and holistic well-being, ensuring leaders thrive in times of rapid change. Super excited to have a deep conversation with you, Aileda. Let's get started.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thanks for having me, Christian.
Yes, what an honor, and I think it's the perfect time to talk to an expert like yourself because we live in a time where I feel the feminine is really
Mm.
going online more, and I was having a conversation with a friend a year ago, and we were in Guatemala, Lake Atitlan, just visioning about the world, and I said, I feel like my mission with Love Pixel is kind of like to bring the feminine online because technology is such a masculine space. Even like the internet is like boxes and pixels, and like
Yeah.
the divine feminine is like soft and round. It's like so. Yeah, tell me about your view on the world, on things, on leadership, on where you see the world going.
Well, so I'm just going to lead with the feminine that you just spoke about. And I agree. I think it's very important that the feminine start to come to the forefront in many of the things that we are faced with and coming into in today's world. Technology being a huge, massive player in that, and how it's transitioning everything for us very rapidly. Quantum computers have now entered the arena as well. And I don't think that there's a single person on the face of the planet alive today that truly understands perhaps what that's going to bring to all of us as a global humanity. I can't imagine that there could be somebody who actually is completely dialed into what that capability is going to bring, right? So we're in a very unique and interesting place and time on a whole right now. That's kind of where my headspace is at, and
Yeah,
leadership, and how do we help leaders who are coming into this place, and all of the change management that they're going to have to sift through and navigate, um, to pilot, right? To pilot.
yeah, yeah. I think it's more so not necessarily how do we pilot for people coming to the space, but people who are in the space, right? Because people who come in it usually, I would say, younger generations, they know. Like I feel, they just know how to lead. It would in a much more, I would say, feminine, just like balanced way than what is currently existing as a system.
Yeah. So definitely a change in leadership style, right? Old ways of doing business and new ways of doing business. Like that's all at a juncture right now, right? And so it is quite fascinating. I agree. A lot of youth will understand a lot more about leadership in many ways, especially in regards to leading with compassion, right? Leading based off of experience. I would love to think less judgment moving forward, paying attention to who people really are more, leading with the relationship and the connection and humanity, right? Human connection first, and letting everything else come secondary. Um, there's still an awful lot that we can equip leaders, whether they're of the youth and the younger generations coming in, or if they're the existing, so much, right? In regards to just learning how to master the art of leadership, their own body, their own system, their own mind, our operating systems as physical human beings, and how that impacts everything we touch and do, especially as leaders.
Hmm. And where have you found the biggest, I would say, gap or misalignment, so to say, in current leadership or in the leaderships and people you've worked with in your career?
Yeah, I'm going to lead with saying understanding energy, understanding how their own physical system works. Um, I always say you hear the term mind, body, spirit, right? And everybody always leads with mind, body, spirit. And I think it's a bit unfortunate because I think what's happened is that people have truly embodied that order, that working order, and
Hmm.
they have a tendency to think that the mind is the leader in the equation, or like the mind takes over. It does, and it can, and it will, right? Because it's designed to serve us. So out of the 35,000 decisions we make in a day's time, it'll happily make 95% of those or more if we allow it, right? Automatically for us. Um, Knowing that, I think, is really vitally important because conscious awareness is what allows us to make new decisions. And new decisions are what has to be made, especially when we're looking at. So, I'm going to use the pandemic as an example. For a period in time when things felt like they went into warp overdrive and started moving really fast for me. Um, I had just had a group of medical practitioners across all aspects of the medical world and realm and industries, plural, contract me, and they were all located in New York. And that happened about 6 weeks before the pandemic hit. And so, conscious leadership development and my program for this really was born during that time without me knowing. What I mean by that is it was my capability to be able to navigate and stay present and design and build and orchestrate, design and build around everything that was happening in real time. Right? It was learning the art of staying conscious and in the present moment and designing and building around everything that was changing by moment, moment by moment by moment.
Hmm.
Um, there's no way that we would have accomplished as much as we did in such a short window of time. What was accomplished in these little team units was far past what mass conglomerates were doing at the time. And that's one of the things I think is really important for entrepreneurs in particular to keep in mind is the smaller your business, the smaller your operation, the faster you can pivot, the faster you can cultivate the change that's sometimes necessary to meet the demand of what you're faced with in a current existing time.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful, way of being able to be in an organization or work with an organization because the change happens so fast when people are just activated. Usually people are just like, I don't know, 1 out of 10 maybe wants to change, but when during a pandemic, I feel like everybody's just like, their survival feeling is heightened. There's like, we all have to change.
It was,
So,
yeah, it was a bit like a war zone, right? And it hit at once, and nobody knew what was going to happen next. And again, my teams were at the forefront, right? Almost of like the war zone, right? The medical teams, right? And then all of the hiring and the development and the processes and just the navigation of everything that had to be put together, as well as entire new ways of doing business
hmm,
um, on the fly, essentially, right? Literally, very much so on the fly. Um, and it was, I mean, an honor. You said it earlier, you led, right? When in our very opening conversation together, you were like, it's such an honor to get to do what I do, right? For the world and in the world and to be that and embody that. And that's really how I feel about everything I get to do and touch. And like, I've been living my passion for a
hmm,
very prolonged period of time now.
beautiful.
And I can't imagine it different. Yeah.
And what do you currently um work on? What excites you? Where's your, what are you currently, like, what occupies your mind space and heart space?
Mm. My mind space and my heart space. Yeah, again, takes it back to, so when I say I started to lead with mind, body, spirit, right? And that working order. And I say that's not how it goes. It goes spirit, and then it goes mind, and then it goes body. And our spirit, I reference as our conscious mind, our ability to stay conscious for prolonged periods of time. We just don't simply exercise it or know that we can do it. Really learning the art and of that brings balance to our body, to our system, to our mind, which again makes much better leaders moving forward into the future. And so, spirit, mind, body, I say, is the proper working order.
I love that. And do you have any, I guess, what are your top tips to live more from in that order versus the other way around?
It's going to be much of what most people will say to you on a regular basis, and that is, I'm a firm believer in meditation. I think it's a vital importance, learning the art of calming the mind and allowing yourself to become a receiver of information versus a pusher of information is very important. Um, that I will tell people does not have to be in any specific way. I have lived knowing that I can have active meditation as much as I can have calm sitting meditation. I would encourage people to find what is going to be the right way for them.
Mm,
Everybody's physical systems are different. Honor what your own needs are intuitively with being able to enter that space and state of being. Nature. I tell people like grounding is very real. We are energetic
mm,
beings, right? There are a lot of frequencies that are flying around the face of this planet. Reality is that we do need to ground our energy. I have had, clients who are aerospace engineers who I tell this to, and they're crafting rocket ships, right? And it's an exhilarating work of art. They're doing their passion. They also understand science. So when I explain to them how frequencies are moving about all the time and they really need to just get their body on the ground, at first there's a bit of a challenge, but then they automatically, after trying it, right, once or twice, and almost pushing past that to, well, what are people going to think of me? And I'm like, look, let me show you all the ways you can ground without anybody even knowing that that's what you're doing, right? You don't have to take off your shoes. You can throw a picnic blanket. You can sit down, right, on the ground. You can have experiences in grounding where people aren't going to think that you're weird or strange or whatever the case may be, right? Because I think that's one thing that really blocks a lot of the younger leaders when we're talking about younger leaders coming through. They do still very much so feel that sense of being judged.
mm,
And I think sometimes that will stop their actions, right? Um, yeah. So grounding, that would be a top number two. And I'm a huge proponent of you have to be moving your body, right? So when that's the third pillar, spirit, mind, body. And so the body has to be taken care of through nutrition and movement. And if you're not nourishing your body and honoring your body, then that will also create a disturbance in the balance of those three sectors, right? That are very important for our operating system.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think looking at life that way, it's like how much is your spirit, mind, and body in balance, is I
Mm-hmm.
think a great starting point for each of us. And you can take inventory, for anyone who's listening, and just kind of make 3 circles and be like, from 1 to 10, how balanced is my mind? How balanced is my spirit? How balanced is my body?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a like great little quick exercise, yeah, for people to do. So let me ask you, since we are on the Successful Spiritualpreneur podcast, like, what is your definition of a successful spiritual entrepreneur or spiritualpreneur, however?
I'm going to lead with something that most people probably never do, and I'm going to say money.
Mm,
Actually, successfully, financially thriving in the world and not scrambling, scraping, surviving. And I think that this is a vital, I don't think I know this is a vital lesson for people to learn in this space, right? And especially in this spiritual space, because typically it's givers. And the challenge with this is that givers will always say, yes, but like, shouldn't I be giving it? Like, shouldn't I be giving it? And the answer is yes. And I'll explain the way in which it should be derived, right? And the way you should have the mindset of going about it so that you sustain yourself first, right? So first I will say that you can give free advice all day long. Unfortunately, our society is set up to where people do not value or have appreciation or pay attention to anything unless they are paying pretty dearly for it, right? The more somebody has to pay for something, the more attention they're going to pay to you for receiving that education, receiving that information, receiving that service, receiving that product, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that you have to just understand that that is an aspect of today's business world, and you need to act accordingly with that information. You need to honor yourself. You need to have self-worth. You need to have self-appreciation. You need to have self-love. And you need to lead with those things, because that's what you're also needing to give back out to the rest of the world. And the greatest gift that you can give is to rake it in, like make millions and make billions, right? Because the more you have, the more you have to give to truly make an impact. And so the message is playing small does not serve, period, right?
Yeah,
That
I love that,
go for
This-
the gold, go for the gold.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. And you're right in the fact that nobody else leads with that, which is beautiful, because it shows you really like where is somebody's priorities and like what do they, because you ultimately you can do everything you want in, like, let's say the upper three chakras, you know what I mean? If you don't have the lower three chakras, you're never going to be able to ground that energy in.
correct. You have to pull it to the material plane, right? You have to, we all are operating here on the physical material plane, and the impact that we're able to make here is very important. But we need to definitely be all about the self honor. That has to be a huge, massive component to grounding all of the goodness in.
Hmm. And so, with having said that, what would you say, maybe in one sentence, what is your definition of a successful spiritualpreneur?
Mm. Somebody who is living their purpose passionately and thriving.
Beautiful. And for anyone who's here, what like who inspires you currently the most in your spiritual and entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, goodness. I mean, there's been plenty, many, both from a business and a spiritual aspect across the playing field. Quantum physics, and epigenetics. I really like Deepak Chopra. I've liked him for a long time. I think that he has had a phenomenal way from the onset of really bringing quantum into a mental headspace where people can understand it better, learn, start to comprehend and understand the quantum aspect of things and the capabilities there. Um,
What,
Neuroscience. Go ahead.
what about money mindset?
Hmm. I'm not sure that I've ever.
Or like,
Let me
book,
say,
people,
yeah. Let me say.
abundance, I guess, is the word that usually people connect with it.
Um, I have to pull up the audio. I think it's Jen Sincero.
Sincero, yes, she's a
Yes, I love her work. I love how she presents. I love how she comes to the forefront, just very no bullshit, and just kind of
Mhm.
cuts through the chase and gets down to the brass tacks of things. Yeah, I would say her for that one.
Yeah, she's really great. So for anyone who's listening, Jen Sincero is a really, really great author, and her
Mhm.
voice in her books, because I've read some of her books as well, is really. she's very direct, very like a friend. So it's
Yes.
really
Yeah.
cool to read and very, very engaging, very motivating. She's like, she's talking to you. And so yeah, check out Jen Sincero.
Hmm.
Um, so for in your current world, like what do you see is the most like important skill for people to master in, the current state as well in regards to leadership, starting their own business? What would you say is like, yeah, put your mind here and your heart here kind of thing?
Well, I would say put your heart and your mind in the same space because that's conscious awareness. And that's what you need to lead with because you need to be making new choices and new decisions as often as possible. It's about the art of learning to exercise our capability to be conscious more than I think the projected 5% of the time. Right? I do not believe that we're designed to be conscious 5% of the time. When that's when we can make new choices and new decisions, I think we need to flex that muscle more
Mm.
and stay in that space because then when your heart and your head, so open heart, coherence in unison with logical mind, right? And those two really being at the forefront, operating together in unison is conscious awareness. And it's pretty hard to go wrong and not have magic occur. It's oftentimes too what, an athlete might refer to as the zone. When you get in that, you hit that peak point where you're just like, you think you can't go any further. And then you flip a switch in your head and you just, take over your brain and hijack it from all the negative thoughts. And you get into the flow and you come into a conscious state of being. Now, all of a sudden, you can continue to go much farther at a
Mm,
rate of speed that you never thought you could.
beautiful. Yeah, I think mastering one's state is very powerful, to if we could describe that, I guess, as the skill to master your own state, if you're able to switch from, I don't know, being scared to getting back into alignment, getting back into flow, that is a very powerful tool.
Mm-hmm. Without question. It's alchemy. That is
Yeah.
alchemy. That is the alchemy state of being.
Mm, wonderful. So I would love to ask a couple questions around, what you feel is coming with AI and technology. It seems like, you were also mentioning quantum computing, which I am a techie, but I can honestly not imagine what it will bring.
Yeah.
So what do you feel that AI is currently doing in the workspace?
Mm. So AI is not something that I say is necessarily meant to be feared, right? Again, it takes us, right, the human mind to program AI effectively in order for it to be a true resource for us. The capability that it's already showing and presenting in regards to healthcare alone is absolutely magnificent. Um, you know, it's going to help bridge a lot of gaps that are currently in a lot of industries. And these are gaps that already exist. So it's not about oftentimes replacing people as much as it is, oh, wow, now we have a way to really bridge these gaps that we couldn't before because we didn't have necessarily the manpower in place, right? That's more how I see it being used in the future versus mass layoff situations. And the more that it's used and the more that it's put into play, I believe the more there's also going to be the need for the human factor to come to the forefront and really pioneer and really lead with some of this capability that has, it puts us in a place in a state of being able to shift the world towards the positive like this.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's in regards to, I mean, any technology is just a tool, right? It's like how we use it,
Correct.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Resource.
so in regards to like it's a great time because I feel a lot of people are changing their mindset towards a more compassionate leadership. The feminine is coming back online. So that tool being used for that as an amplification of that, I think is exactly what the current state and collective of humanity needs right now, because it's just, we live in this like very boxy masculine system that just doesn't work anymore in a lot of places.
Yeah. The future of all of it is very fluid. So that's what AI does, is brings, to your point, a lot of that feminine energy with the fluidity and the grace and the ease at which things can happen now, right? For anybody who's used or resourced the AI tools, it's pretty magnificent, especially when you really take the time to program something like your brand, right? And your brand information into something. So I recently did a chat GPT, and it's called Ask Aileda Rewire. And it's out and it's actually open to the public for anybody to use. And it's programmed by me in large part to pull information from all of the references and resources that I love in the world that I find to be extremely reputable, to provide key information to just help people start to take themselves out of a negative headspace and put themselves into a positive one. And that is a free tool, because it's free to me, it's free to anyone to be able to use, and to be able to start to reprogram themselves, with that grace
Beautiful.
and ease that you're talking about, right? With the grace and ease. And yeah, and people always ask, like, well, do you get to see? Can you see the questions that I ask? Can you see that it's me? I'm like, I can't see anything. I can see nothing. Like, please use it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. And I think one of the really funny things that was like in the back of my head for the past 5 minutes, like, how funny your name is, Aileda.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I leader,
Mhm.
it's like
Yeah.
Aileda, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting that you depicted that. That actually is, it's a bit about my about side of things. So from the time I was very young, I was nicknamed Leads. And it's interesting because, yeah, from a youth, I always have been almost what you would call more of a natural leader, sticking up for others and, that kind of behavior and stuff. Not allowing somebody to bully or make me feel afraid in any capacity, especially if they're trying to do something bad to somebody else or whatever. Um, and so that's how I kind of got branded with it from a young age, and it just stuck. And then all of the teams and workforces and different company cultures that I've worked within, Aileda is a little bit challenging to remember. So it just comes natural, it falls into play as it should.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what about your own personal like brand? Like, how do you feel that being evolved and shaped by AI?
Mm. Um, I I love that it gives me the capability to put information and resources and materials out into the world very quickly. What do I mean by that? Like, my article content has only, like, I've upped my game on my article content because of how I can program in order to get the information and the resources that I want to share with the world very quickly, right? So, um, I use it very wisely, and the efficiency that it creates for me to be able to get more information out into the world faster, that I'm very passionate about. Like, just that alone, I'm so grateful to have that as a resource.
I know. It's so cool. I'm excited for what humanity is going to create, especially with, all the potential and brain space of humanity and heart space that will be freed up
Yes.
through AI. Like, a lot of people
Yes.
will have this opportunity of like, well, what now with life? I can go back to a job, but it's probably not, I don't really want to anyway. So what am I gonna do with my creative energy? So that's, I think, you know I'm really excited about that for humanity in general. Like, what's to come with people just following their bliss even more. Like, people like
I
you and I are kind of like pioneers and outliers in this society, but it's coming back big time, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has been, right? And I don't disagree. And in some cases, people might not discover this capability until maybe they are pushed out of a position or what feels like pushed out of a position or something, right? But that's where if you trust and you lean in and you use the resources that are available to you and you do a little research, like you're going to come out in a much better positioning than probably you ever would have been with whatever organization you just had that gap with. To your point, like people will learn that they actually can follow their passions and accomplish things at a rate of speed that actually will allow them to make income quickly, right?
Yeah. So exciting. I love it. So tell me, like, what is, it's a very abstract question. Like, what is your vision of the new earth? However, you define that and see that, like, what are you thinking? Like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years? Like, what is not only what you think will happen, but like, what is your vision for it? You know?
Hmm. So I will say this, right? It's not just about my vision, it's everyone's vision in sync together. I will say this that for me personally, and the thing that I focus on a regular basis and grounding in, right, when I'm in meditative state of being, is really bringing to the forefront that piece in quantum physics that I spoke about earlier. And that is when you understand quantum and you understand that there's endless possibilities, endless. So if we learn to become more conscious, and we are, right, it's happening, what's happening in that state of being is that then we realize, wow, we could just as easily have all of these amazing, right? You could just as easily, versus having all the doom and the gloom and the bad and whatever, you could just as easily have whatever you might reference as heaven on earth. And you can have that experience too, because in a realm where there's endless possibilities, you can have all the very best ones. You can apply all of your focus and your energy on that. You can have gratitude for that. You can hold space for that. You can apply focus to that. You can apply energy to that. And you should as often as possible. Again, to your point, with that very open heart, expressive feeling, right? Prayer, I've always viewed as a way for us to have the capability to ask for what is in our heart, right? So,
Beautiful.
mm,
Yeah.
great question. You ask great questions.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it's, the questions really are at the core of, again, spirituality and entrepreneurship, right? Like, where do we want to
Play.
drop into, right?
Mhm.
And so my next question is a little bit more personal about your legacy.
Mm.
And that would be, maybe, you need some time to think, but what are the three words like you want people to know you for after you leave this physical plane?
Conscious leadership development.
Hmm.
Conscious leadership development. I don't take my legacy lightly. I don't take what I believe my purpose and living my purpose in this place and this time lightly. I don't take my goals and my dreams and my ambitions lightly. I take them very seriously and with a massive amount of intent at this stage. Yeah, just that.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for bringing that to the show and sharing your wisdom and your heart. And we're nearing towards the end of this episode, and I'd love to just ask um, any last words you have for the audience, what you want to leave them with, and then where they can find you.
Hmm. So I want to leave them with something that they can probably really apply and make good use of. So one of the things that I hear often and repetitively with people, especially people who are dealing with multiple things, and maybe they don't have time. They feel to balance themselves. They sometimes will get caught in this cycle and this secular structure of stress and saying that and anxiety and really like embodying those things, right? And so I want them to know that UMass Chan Medical Center has been doing these studies for 40 years, and they have proven that the more mindful that you get, the more you reverse all of those things, and pain included. So a lot of suffering in life. And so I tell people it's as easy as please be mindful. And when you start to say those words or those thoughts start to bubble up in your head, start to catch them very quickly and cut them off and replace them with words like opportunity or words like challenge, and just replace those words. And over a period of time, you'll start to feel so much better.
I love that. Yeah, especially since, you know, our thoughts become words, the words become actions, and the actions become reality. So if you're able to change the words, right, it's a very deep psychological rewiring that we're doing. So yeah, it's super helpful. Thank you so much. And where can people find you, Aileda?
My website is the best place. So it's Askaileda, ASKAILEDA.com.
Beautiful. And on there, they will find the app or the Chat GPT access as well, or where can they find that?
That is through Invite. So if somebody wants to come through, there's an ebook that they can sign up for online to learn more about the program. When they do that, then they can automatically also be invited into that chat and to have access to that tool.
Awesome. Beautiful. We'll link that in the show notes. Thanks so much for being on today and sharing yourself and all of who you are with us. And it's been an honor.
I agree as well. And thank you for holding this for people, right? And holding space for this for people and for yourself.
Thank you.
We'll see you. Ciao.